Hi, everyone. I'm not sure if everybody can hear us, but we are starting our webinar now for how to power your content marketing efforts. I just wanted to check in and say thank you to everyone that's here so far. Can you all hear me? Yay! Hi, you, Kim. Thank you. It's so good to hear from you. And I just want to make sure. Oh, great. Hi, Christy. Thank you, guys. I'm happy to hear that you're here. And I'd like to take a moment just to kind of introduce Aylin. She is going to be joining us today. She is the head of content at Single Grain. And I am Lauren Ventura, the content manager at Leadfeeder. Hi, TJ. Nice to see you. I'm glad you got. And I also put a poll up while we're introducing ourselves. If you want to join into the poll, feel free. But I will go ahead and let Aylin introduce herself. Aylin, are you able to talk and hear us okay? Just want to make sure she can hear. I'm going to pause for 1 second and see if she can come and join in. Head of content. Let me just double check to make sure that Aylin can hear us okay, because I think she's the one person we need here to talk. But I will go ahead and keep going while Aylin kind of gets logged in, and we'll kind of get moving without her. Leadfeeder, in case many of you don't know, Leadfeeder is a great tool. That the reason I left the agency world was for this tool, is that it helps you understand your website traffic and know who is visiting your website and when and where and why, and lets you see what people are clicking on. I am going to go ahead and just ping Aylin really quickly to make sure she can log in okay. We just were practicing with this and it was working really well, but I just want to make sure that we can all hear her. Go ahead. Okay, well, we'll get started and keep going. Aylin's in the participant list, Carol is saying to me. Well, she's set up as a contributor, so I want to make sure she can speak. So let me just quickly, I apologize for that. Let me just quickly see where Aylin is so that we can get her in. Okay. I'm going to pause you guys for 1 moment. Thank you so much for your patience. I'm going to keep going with everything, and I'm going to keep speaking until Aylin can join us, and hopefully she will get logged in here to begin the presentation. But what we keep hearing over and over again is that content is king. That is the mantra on the web right now. Google has kind of created the name of the game with content. But I, as a former history major, somebody who was kind of a geek for that stuff, why is content king? Well, the first thing we need to know is that we have to understand Google's 2011 Panda update. I know 2011 seems like forever ago, but it's still highly relevant today. Google changed the game in terms of ranking and deciding what all of us needed when we Google for good content that answers a question. That's kind of our job, as people want answers, yes, but Google realized their job is to give people the best answer fast. So we now have an understanding of what Google's job is, more so than ever, starting kind of when I look back to 2011. One of the things that we looked at that is very important is click-through rate. And click-through rate is important because it's reflected by the number of clicks you receive from the total number of people searching for the particular phrase you're ranking for. So if your click-through rate is higher than everyone else's since that update, Google will slowly start moving you to the top of the search engine result page because their algorithm tells it that it searches for your listing. And, another thing that changed as well is that age. I know to be prized for being old, Gmail will, this is a little cute little lady. No, this says I need to sign up for email. No, age matters with Google now. So yes, we're prioritizing age. And obviously there's not much you can do about your website if it's not old. But you can kind of get around it by creating lots of original content, rarely duplicating that awesome content, and making sure the content that you do provide answers questions that your customers might type into Google's little search box. So making sure that you do that is very important. And let me see here. Okay, I just invited Aylin onto the stage. So she is going to be joining us now for the next part. I believe that I figured out the technical issue here in Livestorm is that she needed to be invited. There she is.
Hi.
Hi, Aylin. I apologize for that. Looks like there was a setting here that's a new setting in Livestorm. We're testing out a new webinar platform, everyone, so I appreciate your patience.
Oh, of course. I feel like any sort of webinar, especially with a tech company, always ends up, having some technical difficulties at first. But just to introduce myself super quickly, I have 10 years in the content marketing world, came from a journalism background, and now I'm the head of content at Single Grain, and we are a full service digital marketing agency with clients like Amazon, Uber, Nordstrom, and Salesforce. So we're small, but we've driven a lot of great clients through our content marketing. So
thank you so much for introducing yourself.
Okay. So keywords, schmewords. So keywords are not the be all end all anymore. So Google always wants to give us the best user experience. When you type in a query into the search bar, they always want to figure out exactly what you mean. And before it was all about exact phrase match. If you had a certain keyword you wanted to rank for, you would just put that exact keyword phrase just peppered all throughout your content. And Google is now onto the, sort of people that try to scam the system, and they've gotten even smarter. So through AI and machine learning, they're not just looking at the keywords, they're looking at synonyms, they're looking at natural language algorithms. They're really looking at your intent, not just taking your search at face value. Okay, so kind of just what I said before, but no longer relying on the exact keyword match. They want to understand the intent and context of the search. And I really like this. Words are concepts. They're not meant to be exact matches. So I included an example of this in my next slide.
And this was from the Hummingbird update, right? This is another update that Google did to kind of change.
Yes, so the Hummingbird update in 2015 made Google smarter, also changed a few other things that Lauren will be going over later. So, okay, so I typed in smoothie. I must have been hungry yesterday when I was making this slide. So here's what's pulled up. So first off, I'm searching smoothie probably because I want to find a smoothie place near me. So Google knows where I am, and it just pulls up a list of the closest smoothie places along with their rankings, their website. I can just click on that and get a map to that smoothie place. They also usually include a Wikipedia definition of the word that you're searching. So here's the definition of smoothie. And I didn't put this in, but right under that definition, they've given me a full caloric breakdown of what's in a smoothie. And underneath the maps, the other things that came up were all recipes, smoothie recipes, 10 best smoothie places in Los Angeles. They know that I live in LA, and they're kind of guessing what I want, but either of those directions they go in is pretty much the intent when I typed in smoothie. And that's not even typing in a question or a phrase the way you normally do in Google. So how do you make use of this? So again, thinking about semantic search, thinking about putting topics, covering all the topics in an article, not just the keywords. Paradoxically, it actually begins with the keywords you're trying to rank for. So again, let's say you're trying to rank for smoothie or best smoothie shop. So you're trying to rank for the word smoothie. I put it in a tool. There's a few different tools I use. This one's called Answer the Public. You can also use any sort of keyword explorer tool. I know Neil Patel has one. Google also has one, but
Yeah, the free one on Google. Yep, I use that one too.
you use keyword explorer.
Yeah, the Google. Yep, on Google. I like that one. It's just hard to find it. Google has so many tools. You just got to make sure you type it into the box, and Google will send it to you.
Totally. I type smoothie in, and it's like, look at all these various inquiries Answer the Public is giving me, which could possibly lead to the word smoothie. So let's say I'm writing an article about nutrition and smoothies. I'm writing for a health blog. It's like, look at all these topics I can choose. Are smoothies healthy? Are smoothies good for you? Are smoothies good for weight loss? Are smoothie fasts, good for you, or do they actually work? So from here, I can construct a really robust article that answers these topics, and Google will know when someone types in smoothie, maybe smoothie weight loss, they'll direct them to this article because I've covered all the topics someone could possibly mean when they're searching for that term. And another great SEO tip is I often use questions for my header. So instead of saying smoothie health, I might say something like, are smoothies healthy? And then go into the content around the health of smoothies. And that's because people, especially with voice search, often query Google by asking an actual question.
Yeah.
So Lauren's provided another example on the next slide.
We have a few people that asked if we'll be providing a recording. I just want to let you know that we will be providing that at the end. I apologize for stopping, but I want to make sure everybody knows that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll be sending out a recording and a follow-up on this webinar. So, you can always refresh your knowledge, but, I'm definitely driving this point home. But another example, so let's say you have a restaurant in North Park, it's a neighborhood in San Diego. At some point you might have said, like, Italian food is, at the best restaurant in San Diego, San Diego's best restaurant, just hammering people with really bad keyword stuffed writing. And Google doesn't believe it anymore. So right now you want your restaurant website to rank. You would write some blog posts about, great dining experiences in San Diego, or you might say, 10 best, you might do a guest post like 10 best restaurants for a date night in San Diego. And they know that that's your intent, is to find the best restaurant, and also too, we don't type best restaurant now, we'll type like, where in San Diego can I find the best sushi tonight? So, let's say you have a sushi restaurant. If you were to create a menu, with all your roles, like Google knows if you're saying San Diego sushi, they'll say, oh, dragon roll. That probably, correlates to this person's query.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love too that the idea that the Answer the Public kind of had all those questions, and if you answer them and create, I think you had mentioned before when we were chatting about how creating content that actually has those as headers, those questions, and then answering them, and that kind of drives back to the point of answering the search, the question that people are asking in that box. So I like how that all ties in. I know we're driving it home, but it's important. I think you're right. If we kind of keep going, some of the really important SEO tips, now that SEO we understand has changed a lot from all these different updates since 2011. So we've kind of broken down the top techniques to help you skyrocket your rankings. And somebody's asking if B2C and B2B techniques and principles, will we cover this today? That is a great question. I almost feel like sidebarring to answer. Matt Roberts asked, do you see a difference between B2C and B2B techniques and principles? I'm going to actually just stop what I was saying for a second and answer that. I don't know, Aylin, do you want to kind of cut in and have your perspective first?
Sure. So I've worked for both. So I've worked in both B2C, I've worked for a lot of B2B tech companies. I find that it's very much the same. No, Matt, never say sorry. This is a great topic. So it really is the same thing. I mean, when you're writing for a B2B, depending on the expertise of the audience, you're going to be writing the same thing. Like if I'm writing an article, I used to work at a tech company that provided marketing solutions for doctors. So I'd write articles about like SEO and social media for doctors. And it's the same thing. It's that value add informational content. And B2C, you can have a little bit more fun with it than B2B. But, I wrote for Party City at one point, a party supply store. And, we do things like how to throw the best Mickey Mouse birthday party. It's just really what you're trying to sell. And it's also going to be about, which is a whole other topic, the customer life cycle.
Oh, yeah.
B2C include links to products. With B2B, it's sort of a longer life cycle. So
I agree. I think that at the end of the day, when you're talking about B2C versus B2B, sometimes the strategy changes because obviously, like if you're selling a SaaS product and, like with Leadfeeder, we have, a trial period. So obviously some of the content we're creating is very unique because we're working with that B2B concept in mind. But at the end of the day, like you were saying, if you understand your customer and their journey, a customer is a customer, whether they're a business or an actual just person, you try to think about what they want and need. And I think that content, as long as it answers those things, it almost doesn't matter which bucket you're putting it into. So I agree with you, Aylin. I think that it doesn't matter so much. And Matt, yeah, don't apologize. You're not slowing our roll. It's a good sidebar to ask, and it's a good point to ask it in because we're going to continue talking about, techniques. So one of them is, the 5 tactics for ranking now in 2018. Aylin and I kind of talked through this. We use some of the great content at Single Grain to help us with this part. We picked out kind of 5 that we thought were the easiest wins for people trying to power their content marketing. So formatting your posts for easier reading, using images throughout your content, using bucket brigades, writing in the inverted pyramid style, which Aylin and I are both former journalists, so we like that one the best, I think. And then how to improve your bounce. So kind of starting off with formatting, shorter paragraphs and shorter sentences. That's really important, is trying to make sure to be punchy with your language and not yammer on as long as you can with a point, breaking it up with subheaders, bullets. It's a good way too to go back into old content and dust it off and make it more readable, because as we've learned, people don't sadly read as much nowadays. Hence probably why Aylin and I are no longer journalists, because journalism, even print journalism, as we know, has kind of died. And so what people are doing are scanning. Make it easier for them to scan is a really great way. And part of that as well is using beautiful, high quality imagery. If I had a nickel, and I'm sure y'all can attest to this, you read something online, it was a really great piece of content, but it was just a big block of content, had nothing formatting to break it up. There was no images in it. And it was almost difficult to digest the good content. So having high quality images and photos and graphs and infographics, if you can take the time to make them and take the time to load them in, it will really help. Also too, it breaks content into different sections, and people like looking at pretty pictures. That's kind of the thrust of humanity. We need something to kind of keep us engaged as we're reading now. So the other thing that I loved that Aylin and I were talking about when we were creating this deck is the accessibility update that Google did on alt tags. And I was going to kind of let Aylin talk a little bit more about that.
So yeah, I mean, a great SEO boost to images is in the alt tags, which is the description of what's in the image. You can add a lot of keywords in there. So Google can't crawl images, they crawl words. So when someone does an image search, what Google is actually doing is looking at the description of the image. So great opportunity for an SEO boost. If you use WordPress, it's really easy to do when you upload images. Also, something that I just found out is that Google rewards sites that provide the best accessibility. So this really helps the hearing impaired, and Google likes that, which I think is really cool.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's, and I was, saying before when we were talking through this, is I remember using more WordPress. If your site is built on WordPress, they make it very easy to add that in. It's very quick and simple. And it also, it does help people who have accessibility issues when they're searching online, viewing online. one of the other ones on our list was bucket brigades, and that's probably a new word to some of you. It's a copywriting technique, and you can see here in this visual from a single grain blog post, is that it can kind of just help you break up that idea of breaking up content to capture a reader's interest, keep them on your page. And it basically involved breaking an idea into multiple sentences using trigger words or phrases such as look, or something as lengthy as the secret to great copywriting is this, and ending the sentence with like an ellipses or a colon. Those little techniques can go a long way in helping people. So they're kind of called a bucket brigade because it's a little bit of a bucket. You're blowing out the paragraph into more digestible, quick, scannable content. And then also too, we have a good little tip to kind of throw in here that Aylin organized for us.
Yeah. So, if you're on a limited, even if you're not on a limited budget, you probably have great content already. So something that I found really helpful is repurposing your good content. So Lauren mentioned before that age is really important. So what I'll do is I'll go into Google Analytics, look for my most popular posts, and find the ones that need to be updated or upgraded. So maybe they need updated stats, maybe they need more visuals. It always helps to write a longer version. So when I look at those posts, I say, okay, is it 2,000 words? Why don't I make it the ultimate guide, make it 4,000 words? You can also take content to create a webinar deck. You can, take content that you haven't used for a while and put it back out on social media. And you can do some other, I'm going to talk about backlinks and crosslinks later. But also, I've often created ebooks from a series of blog posts, or I've taken an ebook and made a series of blog posts out of it. So a ton that you can do. So don't just crank out content every day. Look to what you have, and evergreen content will just build and build and build on itself.
Yeah, I love that tip. I think we're doing this right now at Leadfeeder. We're a 5-year-old startup. We have a lot of really great content. Our app has evolved over time. And kind of going back to the question we received before, like for B2B, that would be a difference of a technique, is that, obviously if you have a product that you're selling to people, you want to make sure that the UI that you have in old posts is correct, or things like that. So yeah, going back into your old content can serve a bunch of purposes, especially if you've been upgrading your product to your people. You may have old information there. So it's really nice to be able to do a facelift on that. One of the things we talked about as a tactic is now the inverted pyramid. You guys probably, if you're still reading journalism, hooray, I love it. I love that people will read. But if you kind of notice the way news articles are written, the most important is at the top, and then it kind of funnels down. And so that's kind of the goal of using the inverted pyramid to write, is you put the most who, what, when, where, all the details in the front of the article, and then continue on down until you get other general info and background info. This is a great technique to use because it helps with readability as well. Because once again, as we said, people do tend to scan. So it just makes sense to give them what they want as soon as they land on the page to encourage them to keep reading. Also, too, we've talked a little bit about bounce rate and how that kind of has changed as Google has done all these updates over the last 7 years. Kind of talking quickly about like factors that increase bounce rate, and then some tools to mitigate high bounce. Aylin and I kind of talked about the ones that we've used most frequently, and some of the ones that we like are Crazy Egg, which helps subscribers rate and understand user experience. They kind of do heat mapping, scroll maps, things like that. And then Optimizely, which specializes in A/B testing, like a scientific data-driven way to test websites for maximum usability. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to say, and what Google is even trying to say, is that writing well, delivering value, and proper formatting can only go so far. So a key part of engagement is to lower your bounce rate, which, to define it, it's a percentage of visitors who land on your website and leave without interacting any further. Bounce rates can be raised by improving user experience, improving landing pages, because more often than not, a high bounce rate when people are jumping off is because of poor usability or an awkward user experience, or the content just wasn't what they were looking for too. So once again, kind of going back to the idea of creating good content that answers those questions. Some of the other tools that I really love as well is called usertesting.com, and they kind of let you choose somebody to go through your site. You give them a bunch of questions that get recorded in real time going through your website and kind of guiding on where they're dropping off, like where an experience doesn't feel good. So that's another great way to kind of gauge why maybe people are dropping off. Google Optimize, we just began using this as well at Leadfeeder for A/B testing. And it really does help kind of give you an idea of where people are dropping off even on your homepage flow. And that can be good for B2B or B2C. All these products really help regardless of what type of content you're creating. And then, as we've kind of talked about as well is, this idea that there are keywords everywhere. And just kind of going back to drive it home is that, littering your content with keywords sounds awful. And nobody's really doing that anymore. It's just not a good experience for a reader, a potential customer. It's just called keyword stuffing. And Aylin, I know you have a little bit more to say about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Google's all about user experience. So just think think about what you'd want to read, think about what you'd ask for, and just don't use the old techniques. Google is going to penalize you if you use them. I mean, it's not just that you won't rank higher. It's, if your site's not mobile responsive, if, your content's really thin, Google will lower you. So it's really important.
Right. So yeah, content's a big deal. And I love Ron Burgundy because I am from San Diego and we have his painting up a lot around here. So yeah, I mean, to kind of play off of, what she's talking about and what we've been talking about is that quality content is where you can really get the most wins. So, just some things to keep in mind is that if you use a lot of the techniques that we've talked about so far, get an editorial calendar with your team that appeal and put all the things in there that appeal to your customers' interests and start figuring out ways to create content and how to deliver it so that you can all work as a one team approach to giving your customers the most value from all this quality content that you've done. And that's why Aylin was talking about the idea of repurposing, is because it's so important to take all that you've done and figure out ways to maximize that. As long as your content is original, targeted to your audience, or even curated through guest posting or co-marketing opportunities, just always make sure that it's guided towards the audience. And I always remind people too is that, adding a journalistic voice, adding a nice voice to your brand, that all really helps make it better as well. And so kind of, going back on this, how does Google now define good content? Well, since this Panda update and all these other updates since then, they're just able to determine the quality of your content much better because, for example, they can now crawl and see if a website's really thin, doesn't have a lot of content, which can dip your ranking. You have a lot of duplicate content. Now Google can understand this and you can get dipped. Looking at the content on one website as well and now comparing it to others within your space. So you've got to understand how Google can actually do that type of comparison back and forth and seeing, if you have a blog post of the 20 best tools for marketers to use to push content and somebody else has one that's answering more questions, people are clicking on it more, Google will rank them higher. So it's all a good way to kind of be mindful of that. And then another way to kind of power that content up is, Aylin will talk to us a little bit about backlinking and cross-linking and how to effectively use that.
Sure. So backlinks are links from other site back to your own. So one of the things that Google judges you on is authority, and they want to make sure that you know what you're talking about and your site knows what it's talking about. So you backlinks from more authoritative sites. For instance, with our site, we had nothing, and then our CEO started guest posting. So all of a sudden there were backlinks from Inc., from Entrepreneur, from Forbes, and they were backlinking back to our site and backlinking to relevant articles on our site. And we really were able to build our domain authority that way because Google was like, okay, well, if Entrepreneur wants to link back to it, it must be good. And Neil Patel, who actually co-hosts a daily podcast with our CEO, it's called Marketing School. It's 5 minutes a day of digital marketing tips. says, so don't add like a ton of backlinks. Like Google is all about, they don't want to find a bunch of scammy backlinks from bad sites or backlinks that like totally have no relevance to your site. So even non-optimized sites can rank well by adding just a few high quality backlinks. You know, you really want to get the best publications linking back to you. And another great tip from Neil, you know, he says, let's say you only have a few links, but some come from .edu or .gov. Google really trusts those sites. So another thing about repurposing is and I see some questions, I'm going to answer them in 1 second.
Yeah.
The thing about repurposing is a lot of times I'll look in Ahrefs and see how many sites are linking back to a particular article. And something that you can do to repurpose without really that much work is to go get more backlinks back to that content. You know, just adding more backlinks just builds that juice. And Lauren, this is for you, but just, you know, Christy's asking right now, who do we know who Google is comparing us to?
That is a great question. That is a great question. You know, it's funny. I know a lot of people use the Google keyword search tool, which we've talked about, and or SEMrush I've used before as well. I feel like those are both, Christy, great ways to kind of see what keywords are ranking right now, and then also too doing a competitive analysis with like your product team and kind of seeing. You might not end up caring much about who Google is comparing you to overall, but you'll probably care a lot more about who Google is comparing to you in your competitor realm. So you don't always necessarily know exactly where you're bucketed in, but if you're ranking already for Leadfeeder, for instance, we rank for lead generation, or who's visiting your website. So I'll kind of look at those search terms and I'll see where we're at in terms of ranking. And I'll see what content is ranking when I type it right into Google, and I can see who's on page 1 for questions that I want us to rank for. So I feel like, Christy, and I hope this is helping answer, is that the best way to do it is kind of a couple of pronged approaches, is doing a competitive analysis of the people who are in your space and what they're doing better than you, and kind of being honest with their content and yours and comparing it. And then also typing into Google some of these search terms that you've come up with and where are you ranking on them and who's ranking better. So you can find that out so simply by just typing it right into the Google box. And if you want to get a pure result, I always go into incognito mode. You never know what all the other search things that you're doing on your work computer or your home computer can be affecting. So I kind of start fresh and I'll do it in incognito mode. So I hope that helps.
Oh yeah, I love incognito mode to check anything on your site. Also, does the performance of the website count? So, you know, if we're talking technical performance, there are things you can do to up your SEO, like making sure your website loads quickly. You can put it.
I was about to say that.
Making sure your images have alt tags. You can condense the files of your images. Also, you know, having clear headings throughout your website, having clear content, having it make sense with the product that, you know, the product or like the intention of your website. In terms of the actual performance, if we're talking about traffic and time on page kind of build, it snowballs, it builds upon itself. So if Google sees like 10 people are coming to your site, they're spending 5 minutes there, it's like, oh, okay, this is interesting. People like this site. And then they'll start sending more and more people. So it's really a snowball effect. And I find that with content marketing as a whole, it's, use another analogy, it's a bell curve. It's like you feel like it's not working, but when it does, it's just really goes up.
Right. Yeah, I think load time is one of the ones, like in terms of performance, that I've noticed can really ding a site. Like if you have beautiful video that loads automatically when somebody clicks on your site, or really high res images, that unfortunately, as much as we want it to look beautiful, it does. Google does kind of ding you when a site takes over 30 seconds to load, which I've seen that happen for especially big design firms that have like a really beautifully designed website. Now it maybe makes sense why Amazon is a very big company, but yet I will be honest with you, their website is not very beautiful, and it's for that pure factor alone, they can't load it quickly enough for all that imagery they have on there. So that's a great question. Those are both great questions. I hope You both felt that we answered them well enough for you, and I'll keep going. Oh yeah, we have a little bit of Game of Thrones in here. Is anybody else a Game of Thrones fan? We're excited. It's happening this summer, right? All right, we'll keep going. So go ahead, Aylin. I think we were going to talk about crosslinks now.
Yeah, so not only should you be getting backlinks, make sure you're cross-linking to other articles that are relevant to the current blog article. So let's say I'm writing about SEO for enterprise companies, but I have a really great article on SEO basics. I might link, the word SEO to my article on SEO basics, or I might say learn more SEO basics. It distributes sort of this link juice and authority throughout the site, and it also increases that time on page, because I mean, like, how many times have I gone to look at one blog article and was there for hours clicking to all the relevant blog articles. So, another way to repurpose is if you have years worth of content and you're updating an old article, make sure it links out to all those other articles that you created in the meantime. This is just like an easy way to boost your SEO.
I love that. And then, we did a little quick poll at the beginning of the webinar, and we asked people what their biggest content marketing challenge is. And I took like a wild guess, because it's my challenge, and I don't know if it's Aylin's challenge, but I will guess that it might be, is how do you gauge the success of your content? I mean, I'll read an article and go, that was great, but that's like an opinion. And so, when you are working in a department, they'll want to know, what are your metrics? And part of the reason, like I said, that I joined Leadfeeder is that I'd worked in design agencies for most of my career in big corporate companies, and it was hard for me to give my boss a way to gauge metrics and success on a campaign all the time. And so with Leadfeeder, we're powered by Google Analytics. We're partnered with them. We're a website intelligence tool that lets sales and marketing teams, which I don't know if you guys are all marketers, but I feel as though the future is that more sales is happening, where we're working closer together to make magic happen. So kind of helps give greater insights on who's visiting your website, what they're viewing, when they're clicking on. So it's a really interesting tool. You can see here as part of our UI in this image. And, using the behavior intelligence, now marketers and salespeople can gauge interest from anonymous website traffic. Because as you guys probably know, is that most people don't leave behind their contact details when they're coming to your site. I think only about 3% do. And so how do you know your content is performing well? Well, I began using Leadfeeder with my AdWords campaigns to see if it was effective. So you can kind of do that with Leadfeeder, in that you can very easily set that up. And because we integrate with Google Analytics, so you can now study the click-through rate and cost per click, how many conversions, all that stuff through tracking it, the metrics here. So you'll create a custom feed in it. You can see all the companies that click through your paid marketing campaigns to your website, and then see what they're doing on your website, even when they don't convert. And that can be really valuable information and behavior to get on with. And then also another, pain point. Oh, this is how you set it up. It's very simple for us to set it up in the Google AdWords. You just create the custom feed here, and then you can view your AdWord campaign effectiveness through the app. So I've enjoyed using that feature. And then email marketing. I don't know how many people use MailChimp. I tend to use it at most companies, but oftentimes you've got a bunch of other email software. But we integrate with Zapier and MailChimp. And so you can also set up a custom feed to track your email marketing efforts. And I use this a lot for instance, for our monthly newsletter. And it's quite simple to set up as well. So, pretty much every email marketing tool gives you this information on who opens or clicks. But as a marketer, you need to know more about how your email marketing is working, and how you can even pass some of that information off to sales to help lead generation and close deals. So it's kind of nice to have both departments be able to benefit from marketing. So yeah, and then also Single Grain has another content marketer solution that she'd like to talk with you about, and I will go ahead and pass that off to you.
So Single Grain, we're a full service digital marketing agency. Our CEO is it's real. Why I came to work here actually is because he's such an industry thought leader. He hosts 2 podcasts on marketing. He's, young and already has this huge this SEO agency. And so he's putting out a course actually called Digital XP Marketing Accelerator, and it's actually a series of online courses, self-paced. And the first course we're putting out is content marketing. So we're all here. We want to get better at content marketing. So Eric will go through, he'll show you step by step how he got these huge clients through content marketing before he had money to put ads out there. They're really comprehensive. We're launching our SEO course next, but the content marketing course is going to launch July 1st. So kind of what I said before. So look, I'm involved in the creation of the content. It's really actionable. It's not fluffy. It's not one of those courses that's like, why does content marketing matter? We all know it matters here. So like, how do you do it? Where do you start? So Eric hosts 2 5-star rated podcasts with over 11 million downloads. He's a regular contributor to the publications I talked about before, which is how we were able to build that domain authority. So just for webinar registrants, we're going to offer $50 off the price of Digital XP. So right now, the product is $4.99, but you'll get it for $4.49 with the coupon code LEADS. And again, this isn't just someone who's putting up a Skillshare course. I actually do believe in the content. I mean, I feel like he's condensed the 10 years of experience I've had into a course where he talks about SEO, processes, the types of content that matter, buyer personas, like everything you could want to know. So if you're interested, check out the website. And if you would like to purchase, coupon code LEADS.
Awesome. I'm going to do that. And I don't know if anybody had any more questions. We have a few questions that were emailed to us prior, but please feel free to take the floor and ask away. And hopefully we can help you power up your content marketing. I know we covered a lot of ground today. Went through back to 2011 and all the little updates that we could think of that would help you power your content marketing and get more value from it. But please let us know if we can answer anything else. We've covered a lot today. Make sure. Oh, we got a question. What do we got?
So the inverted pyramid isn't necessarily just for news. It's taking a journalism style and adding that to a blog post. So, it's basically saying Google algorithm update, 3 points about it to learn more, and then you get it into depth and you would go into case studies. So it's taking like whatever blog post you have and just putting the meat right on top. They say in journalism, don't bury the lead. Let people know up front what the article is, some juicy information, and hopefully they'll continue reading. But even if they've skimmed, they get the gist of the article.
Yeah, it's funny because when you're a marketer, everything is exciting news, or at least that's the goal. So it's like you're almost writing everything with that lens on you as a journalist, even though it's a good important. When there's no news peg, you feel like, well, what is this about? Well, if it's, an announcement even about your, blog post, like for instance, we have a newsletter that will go out about our blog post. So I try to make it exciting and go, we're going to cover these 3 points, and I might bullet out like some interesting facts that are pulled out of these blog posts and kind of surface them on the email. So people will click through and drive to the blog to read them. And then the blog posts themselves are also designed that way too, with imagery and bullets. When you have a startup tech client, we have a question from Susan. What is the lead time to see return on investment when the time of posting content? Ooh, startup worlds are very, very fast moving. Aylin, do you have any suggestions for her on that?
Yeah, so I've worked for quite a few startup clients, and I mean, honestly, the first thing they need is processes. So there's sort of an output metric that you can show where you're like, look, I've got these writers, I've got these processes down, we're posting, 3 times a week. It also depends on what the goals are. So lead time to see, return on your SEO investment does take a while. It takes like 6 months. It's definitely like a marathon. Google starts ranking you very slowly, and it does snowball. If you're talking about free consultations or people buying the product, I think it really does matter on the actual metrics you're looking for, how long the buyer life cycle is. But what I've usually shown, when I'm just proving to a startup CEO who's like doesn't totally get content marketing, I'm usually like, here's the output, here's the processes, here's where you were with traffic, here's where you are with traffic, and also here's the time on page, and just saying like, look, people are spending 3 minutes on our website and they're clicking through to 2 more pages. And that's, if they're starting out with nothing, that's good. And then you can sit there and sort of decide with the lead team what the goals are. But it does take a while. And I think that there's like an education component too with startups, because like data scientists, everyone's like, wow, we need a content marketer. But a lot of times they don't necessarily know why they do, or what a content marketer does, or what the ROI is. So that's the other thing I would say, just educate them.
Yeah, and I think too, to answer, like when we talk about even a return on investment at a startup, sometimes they want to see signups. Like for instance, with Leadfeeder, a lot of what we're gauging our content marketing is to get people in the top of the funnel. And we have a lot of custom Google Analytics reports, which I believe Carol, who is part of our organization, she added that into chat for you to kind of take a peek at. But there are a lot of there's a lot of Google reports you can create that can track conversions that are going from your paid marketing efforts, and also from any ads that you have going out, and also seeing traffic, like if you put a CTA in your blog post, tracking that CTA and seeing the return on investment of the content. That can also be helpful for like an immediate, I know sometimes probably Aylin's talking about like the long-term educational approach, and then sometimes you're probably in a situation where people want to know, okay, we just posted that last week, how well is it doing? And sometimes you can see that through Google Analytics. We got another question from Christy. If rebuilding a website from scratch and incorporating new high-value content, what is the best way to mitigate the inevitable dip after the new launch? Aylin, I will probably reiterate some of what we talked about already, but maybe you have a better insight here too.
I mean, we just rebuilt our website. We kept a lot of the content that we had, but we didn't really see that big of a dip in rankings. I mean, if you incorporate the new high value content, like maybe you're going to see a little bit of dip, but you will get so much more SEO value that, it doesn't really matter. I would say making sure that you look at the structure of the site. Like there are other things when you're rebuilding a site that you should do. We talked about page speed, load time, the way that the menus are set up, the way that links on the footer are set up, if you link to the landing pages you'd like to link to. So I feel like there may be a little bit of a dip, but it's like you're going to get so much more value that it won't matter, if that makes sense.
I think too, there's a way when a UX person designs it that they can keep the URL history in there. Like I know there's a technical way to build on WordPress, for instance, where you can kind of keep some of that canonical history in there without deleting it all. But if you are rebuilding from scratch, incorporating the new high value content is a great way to do that, like Aylin had said. And then all the other things are kind of just about promotion. So continuing to tap into your subscriber list, that won't change. Even making it exciting that you're rebuilding your website, letting people know to drive traffic, asking people to vote on things that have to do with it. I always try to engage people on social media. For some clients, I would offer like a poll on Facebook or wherever, and just say, which homepage do you like better? Getting people kind of involved in the process can engage so that people won't get lost when you've redesigned. But most of the time, if you do a great job with the redesign, people will be so excited about the rebuild because the site will function better. You may end up being able to mitigate if it's properly built. So that's a whole other project, though, is rebuilding a site. That's a lot of work.
That says, so the trick to content marketing seems to be churning busy heads with content that is about something decidedly non-newsy without seeming irrelevant. So, I can speak for myself that I've been at a lot of tech companies, and what people really want is like informational resource content. So like what I read every day isn't like necessarily news. It's their articles or case studies on how to get better at what I'm already doing. So
HubSpot's done a great job of doing that. I feel like they're the best blog. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily that you need news. And actually, the thing about posting news is that it's not evergreen, it's not timely. And evergreen content will stay around, it'll continue gathering SEO link juice. It's better to create a few really meaty ultimate guide to blank blog posts than to constantly post news articles.
Yeah, I definitely think when we talk about that news style of writing, it's different than having actual news. So for instance, like a B2B, like for Leadfeeder would talk about maybe the 10 easiest Google Analytics reports to track if you're a salesperson. And if we keep that post updated as evergreen, it's not news per se, but it's really good content that will keep driving people to us who are looking for that. Like for me, I'm looking for that, when I'm reading online. I'll be like, oh, what are the new tools for content marketers to track success? If you have a post that answers that, you're going to get people from all different areas of the market, maybe even beyond your market, that'll come searching for that. And it's good traffic, and so I know it can be really. I'm assuming, Matt, that you work at a content marketing agency, I'm guessing. So clients are hiring you to solve this problem because there may not be news in a B2B world, and there may not be news, but giving them good content that answers the question that their customer profile would be asking. And that's where kind of persona work comes in really importantly, is knowing who your prospects are and what they're like and what they're looking for, and then knowing what your customers are and what they're like, what they're looking for. And that can all really help give you the best opportunity for that.
Cool. So we will be sending this recording out. And if you have any questions, you can always email me at aylin@singlegrain.com. That's AYLIN @singlegrain.com.
Yes, and you can email me at Lauren, LAUREN .Ventura, VENTURA @leadfeeder.com. And same goes for me. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions that we didn't get to answer today. And if anybody has any more questions before we log off, feel free to chime in. We have a couple more minutes left if there's anything, or if we didn't clarify enough on the questions we did answer, yell at us, let us know.
All right. Thank you so much. And I had so much fun with you guys. And thank you for all your engagement. It really makes it fun when we get to talk to the audience so much. So
thank you. Thank you so much, Aylin, for all your knowledge. Oh, we have one more question. Why are some companies successful with content marketing while others are not? I believe taking the course will help. That's a good point. I think that some companies are successful is when they invest in it. I think it's all about like investing in the right people to help. It's a lot of work writing. Somebody can't write 1,000 words a day or 2,000 words a day, which is what a good blog post is. So I feel like it comes down to kind of that brass tacks of having a strong marketing team, because without it, you won't be successful at it, is what I feel.
Yeah, and I think too, it's about prioritization. You can spend a lot of effort putting out like 800-word blog posts every day or 500-word blog posts, but it's really about knowing like what's going to work for Google right now, and also, what people are actually interested in, like what actually adds value to their life. So, we talked about cross-linking and backlinking. Spending time on that as well as writing one really good post is worth like a million of those little 300-word posts.
Oh, I love that. You're so right. You're so right.
Cool.
That was a good question. You guys asked really great questions, and I hope that we answered them. But as we said, feel free to ask us over email, and we will be sending you a recording for sure. afterwards, and it looks like everybody's happy. I got a couple of thanks and thumbs up, so that's wonderful to hear. Thank you all, and we're going to end the webinar now, but like we said, feel free to reach out and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.